Hi, my name's Bianca Denham and I am the Head of Performance and Recognition for the Ray White Group. Today I have the pleasure of talking to Ben Keevers from Ray White Keevers Group.
Ben Keevers!
He comes out of the northern beaches of Perth and his core market is around Sorrento and Marmion. Today Ben is going to talk to us about how he creates long-lasting relationships and has really deep and strong roots with his community. Welcome, Ben Keevers.
Thanks, Bianca. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your marketplace.
We are located in Perth, obviously. Northern Beaches, so that's for people that don't know Perth, that's probably about 10 to 15 minutes north of Perth on the beaches. So nice part of the world, fairly desirable sort of suburbs that people aspire to be in.
Yep.
Not the most expensive part of Perth, but the last couple of years it's certainly shot up a bit.
Great, okay. So tell us about the early days. When did you get into real estate and why did you make that change?
My first year was 2011, so January 2011 I started. Always, cliche I know, but everyone's always had a bit of an interest in property, but it was probably more the people side of things. Like I've loved dealing with people from a very young age, of all ages and walks of life. And I just thought that would be a great career long term. At the time I was working for Carlton and United Breweries. I was doing that for a few years, which was great. It was good fun. Didn't pay for a drink for about 4 years working with them, so that was good. I could see that only had a certain timeline, and I thought if I was going to get into real estate as well, that I'd do it in an area that I was familiar with, where I grew up, and that's what's happened.
Yeah, right. And so you live on the northern beaches, you trade in this area. You got up and away pretty quickly in your career, had success quite quickly. What do you think caused that for you?
I think a combination of things. I think having some relationships in that area definitely assisted me. From growing up in the area, I did know a lot of people, but it was quite funny. I think everyone stands back for a while to see if the kid's going to make it or not. So there was certainly no handouts or no, gimmies, so to speak. So it took a little while to build the traction. I think quicker than most, but certainly having a really good idea of where I was and knowing some people sort of helped with that start. And
you made a comment to me that earlier in your career, you weren't that structured around the way you approach your database, and then you made a change. Yeah. Just talk about that change and how your business looks today around that structure of the database.
So it was funny. So when I started the company that I worked for in the early years, their attitude was, get as many bus stops as you can and put DLs out there and that'll expedite your career, which was hilarious. And I knew that wasn't the case. And I really didn't have any structure. It was a bit of shotgun and sort of ad hoc sort of activities. But it was in line with moving to Ray White. I sort of got some better training and some better guidance around how databasing works. And we had a bit of a messy one to clean up. But when we did that, it allowed us to, I suppose, communicate better, more consistently and regularly with our database. And up until this point in time, I'd say that we probably have one of the better ones that I've seen in my local area. And having worked at other agencies as well, I think we've got a pretty good structure to it now. And I think it's critical because if you don't have any plan or any roadmap as to where you want to go, you're only just going to be capping out at a certain level. So that's allowed us to grow.
Yeah. That's your framework for your growth, that database. You also spoke about a long-term view to relationships. So I know you're part of your community. You're involved in lots of things in your community. Just talk about that long-term view, because real estate can be very transactional. So you see your customers differently to that.
I think, fortunately, I had some great mentors early, and what was drummed into me early was that obviously, it is a long game and it does take time, and I'm not a really patient person. I don't think a lot of salespeople are, but I think it was one thing that I was prepared to, buckle in and know that over a long period of time, if we did it the right way, and if we didn't see, each deal as just a transaction, if we actually played it long term with, doing business with these people for a second, third and fourth time and getting referred to their family, friends and people that they know, that was going to be the success. Yeah. So from a very early stage, that's what I was prepared for. And I think having that attitude even now, that, if you're not ready now, if you're ready in 10 years, I'm going to be here still and I'm going to be ready and waiting. and that it's proven correct. We're seeing now that we're listing properties and getting calls from people that I've been communicating with, for since I started.
Wow.
And just knowing that you can't rush and push people into doing business with you. It's got to be ready when they're ready. And if we do it the right way and we've layered it properly and we've given them great information and we've been regular with our contact, that hopefully the goal is to go in uncontested and win that business and get a reasonable fee and get good marketing.
100%.
Yeah.
So imagine I'm a customer, I'm in your database, I'm 2 years off. What kind of experience do I have? What are the touch points that I'll have from your business in a typical year?
Yeah, so you'll get, so if you live in my suburb, Bianca, and you've got a property, you'll be getting all our listed properties, so you'll be seeing our activity. You'll also be getting a touch point via email or a phone call from us as well when the property's sold to let you know how much it sells for. You'll get regular market, quarterly market updates on the performance of the suburb as well. And typically, you'll get, depending, if you were 2 years down the track, I'm not going to hound you and call you every month, but I'm probably going to check in from time to time and just have a chat and see how things are going. Yeah. Invite you to home open. So I think by the time that you're ready, you're going to see a little bit of us, but in the right way, not a pushy way, not not in your face. You'll just be getting, and I say to our guys in the business now that, you need to, when you call someone or when you make contact, have a think about why you're doing that. Don't just call them to say how you're going and are you thinking of selling yet. Have a really, what value can you add to that conversation that'll make them think, geez, that when Ben rings again, he's obviously ringing with something that's going to be of value. Yeah,
great advice. I just want to go back to that concept of you living and working in the community. You made a comment about sometimes in this industry we have to have tough conversations with people. You work on the motto of you've got to do the right thing by people and tell them what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. Some people struggle with that. You walk down the street, you see your friends or your neighbours in the pub, and then you've got to sit down and tell them their home is not worth what they think it's worth. How do you walk that line?
It is a tough one, and I know early on it wasn't that easy, and you sort of, it's that nervous sort of standoff, and the easy option is just to tell them that everything's okay and you'll see them next week at the home open. It'll be all right. But I think what I've found is that by just being honest with them and being upfront and telling them what they need to hear, you'll actually be surprised with the reaction. Some might not always take it the right way, but I think even they'll cool off over a period of time, and you'll find that they'll call you or you'll speak to them next and they'll say, look, Ben, I'm really glad wasn't what I wanted to hear, but I was really glad that you had, that you were honest and upfront and told me that. And I think it comes, what makes it easier as well is if you're servicing your clients, if you're actually getting to the point where you've got that trust between each other that you can, it makes it easier to have that conversation. And I think that comes back to your service levels and how you run a campaign as well, that I think if you do it the right way, you should be actually have those hard conversations become a lot easier.
Yeah.
So not easy at first, but over time you make it a habit. I think you find it actually, you walk away and you feel so much better having those conversations. Yeah.
And you will prepare that at the beginning of the campaign. Sometimes we're going to have tough conversations. Will you let them know?
Yeah, definitely. I think that sort of, I suppose, some people call it that set up to sale meeting, when you sit down and you actually give them an idea on when you're going to be communicating and all those scenarios. What happens if we don't get any numbers through the home open? This is the conversation that we're going to have. If we get to this point and we're not quite where we want to be, these are some of the things that you're going to have to think about now, so that when we have that conversation, it won't be a surprise. If you do it the right way and just set up that framework, it takes the steam and the pressure out of that awkwardness of like, oh God, I'm going to have to tell him now that it's not worth what he wants.
Yeah.
So that's practice over time, but makes it a hell of a lot easier.
100%. Let's go back to the community. You're really involved. You live there, you work there, your family is growing up there. Talk about how you integrate with the community. What initiatives do you do? Who do you sponsor? The schools, sporting clubs? How does that look in your world?
So I've sponsored the junior football club for about 10 years now. So prior to even having kids, I've got a 6 and 8 year old now, but I played for that footy club when I was a child as well, and I thought that'd be I knew at some point I'd probably be back there, so we sponsor that, and I make sure I'm visible. I coach now my young fella, and we get behind them. So that's a big sporting club in the local area. Also the primary school. obviously me being down there with children now, we try and get behind them for any little initiatives or any sort of sponsorship help that we can. And I think the key with both of those is making sure you're visible rather than just writing out a cheque and giving it away. Yeah. So I don't try and sponsor everyone and anyone. We just make sure we do, the right ones. What we, as a business as well, we really try and promote in a lot of our market reports and to the local area. We always make sure we try and feature small local businesses as well, and that's got some really good feedback as well. So we just try and give back a little bit to the small guys in the community, and probably a lot that most people wouldn't know what they're about. Working from home, running businesses from home. We just try and get behind as many as we can. We also ran. We didn't do it this year, but last year we did the pooch party at the local park as well. Yeah,
went down well.
It went down really well. We got some really great feedback from that as well. So those little initiatives, I think, have helped our brand.
Yeah.
And I think we'd like to think that we're thought of as a brand that gives back a little bit to the area that we live in. Yeah.
Well, when I asked about you, I was told that your customers absolutely love you. And you've got a really loyal, tight customer base. Is there anything else that you think that you do that contributes to that?
I really think it comes back down to just being a good, honest person at the end of the day. There's no frills or gimmicks or anything like that. I think we just make sure that we do good, clean business. We don't play dirty. I'd like to think we're hardworking and I think we're likeable as well. So I don't think everyone's got the ability to do that, but I just think over a long period of time now, we've just done really good, clean business. Yep. And we get great referral out of that as well. Yeah. And I think that's just been built over time.
Yeah, fantastic. I've got one last question for you before we finish. Something fun, something not related to real estate. What's a fun fact about Ben Keevers that we don't know?
Look, I'd love to tell you something that I play an instrument or I do some quirky hobby. I don't. I probably haven't grown out of my early years of with what I grew up with music. Yep. So I love my 80s and 90s rock, bit of punk rock as well. Okay. So try and relive a bit of youth and get to as many concerts as I can.
Safety pins through the ears when you can?
Look, some of these things these kids do these days as well. I'm not that cool, but yeah, I make sure I get into that. I find that as a bit of a release and a bit of fun. So,
that's great. Ben, it's been so lovely talking to you. Thank you for spending some time with us today, and we look forward to seeing your career go on from here.
Thanks, Bianca.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you.